Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the stream. I hope we're all doing incredibly well. I thought today we'd have a little bit of a chat about some news that has come out from Graham Donoghue of the Yorkshire Evening Post, who has had a little bit of a talk not on players that are potentially coming into Leeds United, but players that have a pretty damn big chance of going out of Leeds United. Those are just as important because, well, makes sense, doesn't it? Like, you need to know who's in your squad, and that means who's gone at the same time. Before I dive into all of that, if you haven't yet, I'd hugely appreciate you A, popping a like on the stream, B, subscribing to the channel, because for every 1p that I get before the 20th of July, I'm giving 1p per subscriber to Prostate Cancer UK. And on the 20th of July is the Leeds Creator Cup big old charity match, in which all of your favourite Leeds creators will be competing to try and win the Leeds Creator Cup. That's not the name of the trophy itself, but it's the name of the competition. And it'd be good to see as many people there as possible. I still need to update the description on this stream, but go to leedscreatorcup.com and you will be able to find tickets and all that kind of stuff, and that'd be absolutely wonderful. So, let's have a talk about the 3 players that are reported to be leaving Leeds United. Again, this has come out of Joe Donoghue. As we know, anyone called Joe, when it comes to Leeds news, must be reliable. I'm going to turn on my ring light now and hope it doesn't flashbang me. That's not too bad. Yeah, all Joes very clearly reliable sources when it comes to Leeds United news, and this is the case here. And I just thought I'd have a little bit of a deep dive through all of the cases, whether or not it's right to sell them, and what we're likely to get in exchange. So, the first person on this list is Joe Gelhardt, Joffy, who we deeply loved for a period, because we signed him from Wigan for about £1 million. That lighting hasn't helped, so I'll do that instead. Since then, he has tried to come on a bit, and he's gotten a few fairly decent moments, including that goal against Norwich that he set up. That was absolutely spectacular. And he's proven that he's got a reasonable level of football within him, but the question is it a good enough level for the Premier League, and is it a good enough level for us to want to keep him around? His contract will be running down at this point, and it feels like the club are now in a position of saying, sorry, Joffy, it might be time to go. And I completely understand that, because you can't stay tied to players based purely on vibes. I've been learning that increasingly recently, and am now in the position of, yeah, let's be honest, Mellier's got to go. And I think Joffy is similarly in the position of won't quite cut it in the Premier League, and we can't keep waiting for him to develop. Sorry, Joffy. The second player on the list was Sam Greenwood. Sam Greenwood, who moved to Leeds United at roughly the same time as Joe Gelhardt. We signed him for not very much. I think something like £1 million. And he proved himself to be reasonable at several aspects of the game, including his set-piece taking, which was absolutely fantastic. However, that has still got a little bit of a problem related to it, in that he's not really done much at Leeds since. So if I have a look at his FBref page, I'm also going to open the third player's FBref page as well, just to make things a little bit easier. He has not made an appearance for Leeds since early in the 23-24 season, when we loaned him out to go to Borough. He played 8 minutes for Leeds in that season. When he was out at Borough, got 5 goals, 3 assists, which is sort of fine in the Championship. It's not going to pull up trees, but it's okay. Across 37 appearances, about 2,200 minutes. This season, went right out on loan again, this time to Preston, where he managed to again get 5 goals, got 3 assists, and a bit over 2,000 minutes, which again is fine. But if you're not getting minutes every single week for Preston, you're not really going to be pulling up trees at Leeds United, especially when Leeds are currently looking for a number 10 to displace Brendan Aronson. A lot of people will be of the opinion that Sam Greenwood is better than Aronson, or Joffy is a better 10 than Aronson. We need to be a bit realistic with this and look at the fact that Aronson played almost every minute for a team that got promoted last season. Sam Greenwood didn't for Preston. There's a little bit of a gap there, and we need to keep that in mind. The third player that is looking to be leaving is one that I'm a little bit baffled by the decision to sign in the first place in retrospect. It would be Darko Gyabi, who was reportedly quite good when we signed him. 6'5", defensive midfielder, fairly solid, does the job. Issue with that, he's not hugely developed in his time. In terms of minutes at Leeds United, first season he came to Leeds, he got 8 minutes. Last season, he got 1 minute, and then he went on loan to Plymouth, and then he went on loan to Plymouth again, where, to be fair, he's played 53 matches for Plymouth over the last 2 seasons. But I feel like whilst there is a little bit of potential there, it's not potential that is necessarily going to turn into a long-term retention. Like, sure, Darko JB could become a decent player, but he's not right now. And what we need is players that can, at the very least, get into the matchday squad at the moment. And if you look at last season's matchday squad, JB doesn't get in. Greenwood doesn't get in. Gelhardt don't get in, which is why if Joe Donohue's report on this being that Leeds are looking at selling 3 young talents from the club, it all makes sense. Because they're all players that I don't believe have that much of a future, which is, I say a future at Leeds. So cashing in makes a little bit of sense. However, then it comes to the question of fees, because, of course, when a player leaves, you're going to get a little bit of money in. And it feels like, in terms of fees, we've gone with what's sensible. So the numbers being bandied around for all of the players are roughly in the sort of £3 to £5 million region, which is sort of fine. Sort of. So if I search that quickly. Yeah. So Darko JB, when we initially signed him, cost us £5 million. If we get £5 million back, sure, that is a PSR profit. But in terms of the pure numbers, it isn't, which becomes a little bit of a concern. In terms of Gelhardt, who I think we got for about £1 million, selling him for 3 to 5 is pretty damn good. That is a healthy profit, and we've gotten some decent minutes out of him. Across the years, at least, not in the last season or 2. Greenwood, roughly the same, £1 million in, which is admittedly relatively cheap for us to have signed him at the time. It was like none of these players, I'm saying, us signing them was an error. And selling him for 5 is, again, a little bit of a profit for us. And I think we're taking the right move in that regard. If we can get a profit for players that aren't going to make it in the squad, that we're not looking at keeping for an extended period of time, it's wise to do. And a lot of people will look at that and go, well, if you're only getting £3 to £5 million for each of them, then what's the point? We need to consider wages as well. Because whilst we might have loaned them out and not had to deal with their wages, let's assume in this instance that we wouldn't have been able to. And let's have a look at what would have happened if we would have had to retain them this season, or even if we were paying a chunk of their wages. So last season, JB's weekly pay approximately was about £8,000, which isn't huge, but you look across the length of a season, that's about 400k. Like maybe 430-ish. You're approaching £500,000 on Darko JB, maybe more based on various bonuses, which isn't necessarily where you want to be. The others, a little bit more. So Gelhardt, 15k a week. That's about £750,000 a year, which is not the smallest amount of cash. Like, it's a fairly big expense on a player that is probably at best going to be a bench player in the championship in the Premier League. Would have been on the bench-ish in the championship, but we don't know how we would have been able to sort of develop and claim a place next season. I don't think he would have gotten into the 20-man squad, I'll be completely honest with you. And then we have the most expensive of the gang, of the team, of the 3 that are potentially leaving, and that is Sam Greenwood, who was on £30,000 a week. That's not nothing. That's quite a significant sum of money. And if I'm sort of adding all of these 3 up, because let's be honest, these 3 aren't necessary people within the squad. They're out on loan in the past few seasons, and sure, maybe if they develop, they turn into something. But if you combine all of their wages together, you get approximately £53,000 a week. There'll be bonuses and all that kind of stuff that push it up a teensy bit. But having a look at last season's squad at Leeds United, Dan James was on 50. Strauch was on 50. Solomon was on 45. Aronson 45. Ampadu 40. Rodon 40. Voba 35. Combine all 3 of these players, and sure, you might not have made a ton of money back. You'll get 9 to 15 million quid. But in terms of wages, you've got a fairly solid player there. A fairly solid player worth of wages becomes freed up because, A, you've not got to think, well, we'll loan them out and they will pay the wages and all that kind of faff. You've got a nice chunk of money, which I'm not going to complain about in the slightest. I'm very much looking forward to us being able to put money into better players' wages. And I think this is the better move. Because if you look at the amount that Sam Greenwood was on, for example, I'm going to do a list of players that were on the same wage of Sam Greenwood during his time at Leeds. Bogle, 30k. Meslier, 30k. Nonto, 30k. Darlow, 30k. That's a lot of fairly solid players that were in the squad and contributed to promotion last season. And then you look below that. Tanaka, 25. Largy, 17.5. Rothwell, 15. Gruev, 15. Piru, 15. Like, shifting wages that aren't doing anything to benefit you is an absolute must at the moment, because PSR is a little bit of a monster, and it's a monster that will just eat you if you're spending money in the wrong places. And I think there's a very genuine risk that if we don't sell players like that, then it becomes an embedded culture, like it did at Scum. Scum paid absolutely everyone comfortably far too much cash by a long way, and ended up in a position where they were like, well, no, because everyone potentially signing expects this of the Manchester United wages, so we've got to keep on paying them, which meant that they led to a borderline financial crisis where right now they have to sell to buy, which ain't a good position for them to be in, especially when you consider like the size of their revenue. How they got in that position, I don't know, but they did, and they're stuck there. And I don't want us to get into that place, because if we do get into that place, all we're going to do is end up circling a financial plug hole, because that's all we've allowed ourselves to do. So at the end of the day, when it comes to the sale of Greenwood and Gelhardt and JB, I forgot about JB entirely, because JB is, in the kindest way possible, his time at Leeds is very forgettable. But I don't know. I think these sales are a good idea. It's just how we use the money going forward. On the subject of how we do things going forwards, if you haven't yet, I'd hugely appreciate you popping a like on the stream. That'd be absolutely wonderful. Also, subscribe if you haven't. I know I keep asking that, but if you do, you're basically giving money to charity, so go for it. And yeah, who knows? I'm going to have a bit of a dive through the comments now. I'm not going to do absolutely everything. I'll start a few comments back, purely because I did a sort of like video styley bit for the first chunk, which means that I got to like stay in the flow. If I don't stay in the flow, then I completely lose it, and the video loses all of its structure. But here we are for now. Can't believe Bruno was on 30k a week. It is a bit nuts. And on this, like, sure, that's not bad for a fringe player, but last season, let's have a look. 120k wasn't what Piru got monthly. 120k was what Piru got over 2 months, which is significant. And it makes me feel like that is potentially significantly too much money to be paying to Sam Greenwood. 75 mil on, yeah, that'll absolutely do it. I'll have a look at their actual like player wages now, just to sort of see where they're at. Yeah, so currently Casemiro's on 350k a week, Fernandez on 300, Mason Mount 250, De Ligt 195, Maguire 190. Yeah, their wages are out of control. And it's going to cause them some very, very big issues. And it has caused them some big issues. And hopefully those issues continue, because it's funny. JB not good enough, never was. It was an FFP scheme. It could have been an FFP scheme. That's a fair point. But there's also the conversation to be had at the same time of JB was relatively highly rated within their academy at that point. He wasn't like seen hugely, and it wasn't like this guy's going to break the world. It was more a case of he can develop into a solid footballer. And at the moment, if we get the fee that we might for him, it's not necessarily a financial loss in terms of transfer fees. It's just a bit of a waste of time more than anything, which is still not good. Like, we've got to embrace that. But yeah, I don't think it was necessarily just an FFP scheme. That'll obviously have something to do with it, because we're dealing with Manchester City, and that's going to happen. But yeah, whilst it's not gone well, could have been worse. So that's Highwood for Joffrey, even but 30 for Greenwood. Yes, this is what we call Victor Orta doing his thing. A little bit excited, but spooked is the way that I'm going to put it. Maybe, but at the same time, you've got to understand the PR position that the 49ers are going to be in. Their position right now will be, we've got two clubs, both of which are big, and neither of which are going to be want to be treated as the junior partner. So they would only accept a Greenwood or a Gelhardt or a Gyabi if they were good enough to reasonably get some minutes and play to a decent standard. It would be a horrible idea, in my opinion, if we were to just throw players at Rangers, because like the PR side of the relationship just collapses in that instance, and it leads to worries and problems. Don't know. Unbelievable, it was on more than periods. Naka et al. You sure that's right? I am, because Capology seems to be very, very consistent and good when it comes to salary estimates, salary totals, all that kind of stuff. And everywhere that I'm able to find says that he's on about 30k a week, which is too much. Yeah, but Rooney was an idiot. That's the problem. I already do. I do not, because I gave it a few goes and I didn't really particularly like it. I'm more of a Football Manager kind of guy, which I would quite like them to release something about the next Football Manager game. I'd like to find out a little bit more. But if they're not going to release anything, a bit of a shame. He got an England team for his age, so he had potential, but I guess they decided he's not going to be good enough. Not the first, won't be the last. Yeah, like in every age group, in every country, you are going to get players that you look at and you go, oh, you're something special, and will over time drop off a bit because of either where their level actually is, where their circumstances actually are. It makes things a little bit more complicated. But I don't know. I don't think he's going to be of the level that we need, which is a shame, because I like all of these players. I quite like as like people, although Greenwood seems a little bit like a character. But it's bloody brilliant. You're just scared to lose me. What? Oh, lose to me. I've never particularly enjoyed it. I've got to be honest. It felt a little bit clunky to me, and like, yeah, it's not for me. I thought both Gyabi and Joffy might make it, but never rate Greenwood at all. Greenwood was okay at points. He never proved to be something super special, but there was always at least a little something. Not enough, but a little something. Also, I am going to update the description of the stream. 1 second. There we go. Okay, I've updated the stream description now. So if you do fancy a ticket to the charity match, you can now see the link down below. It's under the immediate description bit. It's crap a swear word. So the way that I've heard like the definition of a swear word, and this is one of the better definitions that I've heard, and I quite like this definition. It's fun. Holy, thank you for the gift of membership, Wayne. I really, really appreciate that. And that's gone to Chris Richmond, so I hope you enjoy the early videos every day. The interesting definition to swear word that I've seen recently is a word where if you say it, it's funny. Because like you've got your various like racist slurs, which if you say it, it's not funny, but it's also unacceptable. It's an unacceptable word in a... No, I'll go with it's an uncouth word that is funny when you say it in the right context. So, for example, crap, there are good cases for that. Fuck, shit, same. That's the vibe, but we're not doing a philosophy vibe stream today. So. Greatly given opportunity to shine elsewhere. Yeah, like, I don't know. Like, maybe sell-on clauses would be a good idea, but I'm unsure. Favorite Pokemon, mine's the one that sleeps all day. I don't really have one, but also the one that sleeps all day, because I like to sleep all day. I wish the club would loan out the younger players before they've already turned 21, 22, but they have done. They did do with JB, and then he didn't really turn into anything. Plus, in the past few years, it's been a case of, well, we needed all the players that we had because we had a very, very thin squad. I had several key moments in his first season, which are still partly just not really getting opportunities, which may be because he wasn't good enough. Yeah, it's a weird cycle of he didn't really play enough, but because he wasn't playing enough, he wasn't good enough, and because he wasn't good enough, he didn't play enough, and then he got sort of stuck there. So an earlier loan for Joffrey would have probably been a good idea. I don't know if it is from Crapper. The myth about Thomas Crapper is a misconception, as the word crap predates his company. It originates from the Middle Eastern word crap with P-P-E on the end, which meant chaff or buckwheat. And it was terms that were related to the act of plucking or cutting off, which you can see why that works. Shibadong is not a word, though. That's the problem here. And go for it, why not? Hope we get a set piece coach. We probably will. For every new member during a live stream, I'll send a free gift per membership. Jesus, you don't need to do that, Wayne. That's okay. There's no need. It's fine. Imagine having that as a surname. You could do. It's a fun surname to have, isn't it? My mistake, the toilet was invented by Thomas Shite. Maybe it was. My reference to Manu Scum got lifted from TikTok as inappropriate language. Yeah, this is why I don't TikTok much, because it's very, very restrictive on language use and all that kind of stuff, which is a bit like, well, no, because just do a little bit of free speechy things. Like, that's always more good. Do you know pajamas is an Indian word? Is it? This is where we're going to go down the whole of etymology. Etymology of pajamas. Let's have a look. It's not. It's from Urdu and Persian rather than Indian. Oh, Hindu rather than Persian. Okay, it's got many origins, apparently. We'll not get 3 to 5 for Greenwood, as Burrett and Preston had a 1.5 million option to buy him and they never took it up. That's fair. But you might be able to find interest from somewhere else. Maybe they had him and were like, well, now I don't particularly... Now we've done the test, I'm less convinced on keeping him. But that's the price tag that's been reported as what we're putting out. So I don't dislike it too much. You need to change the channel name to Joe's History of Language. I might start a second channel called Joe's History of Language and just see if I can... We'll pick a word every day and we'll just dive into the etymology of it. I don't hate that as an idea, actually. That's quite fun. I wouldn't do it. But I don't hate that. That's fun. You know, no, I did know that numbers are Arabic. Yes, I think it was YouGov at one point did a poll just to see how much people thought about what they replied to. And it was a question that asked, would you be okay with schools teaching Arabic numerals? And like 80% of people said, no, that's not on. And it was like, well, they already do, because that's what numbers are. Like, it's... Tikka Masala, I believe, was in better. It was, or Glasgow, one of the two. It's a British dish at the very least. I don't even know what this means. Do you think reform populism comes next as a final end? I ain't touching this one. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a very, very, very quick skim of the news to see if there's anything else that's popped out. If there is, I might do it as a separate stream, to be honest with you. Oh, 1 second. Oh, never mind. It has nothing to do with this. Yeah, anyway. I don't see any other bits of news at the moment. If there do be big news I will pop back on, do a video, do a stream. We'll find out. It'll work out. But yeah, if you've enjoyed, please pop a like on the stream. As always, it's massively appreciated. Subscribe if you're not yet. Again, 1p per subscriber that I've got on the date of the charity match will be going to Prostate Cancer UK, which is absolutely fantastic. And yeah, hope you all enjoyed. I will see you. Never mind, just quickly. View envelopes before I go. I will do that at some point later because I don't have my view on Phillips set yet. I'm going to take a little bit of time to think it over, look at some numbers, and then work that one out. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed. I will see you later. Toodaloo.